Another day, another Genshin Impact boycott, this time with over 100,000 signatures on a change.org petition with the name Stop Cultural Appropriation and Whitewashing in MiHoYo Games. MiHoYo, otherwise known as HOYOVERSE, who is Genshin Impact's developer. This isn't the first time that Genshin Impact is accused by its community, mostly on Twitter and Reddit, of being racist. But this is the first time where you have significant people within the community talk about it. I'm talking voice actors who voiced for the game directly talking about it, and content creators who never really involved themselves in controversy and who've never spoken about something like this talk about it now. The people protesting this were done with the game, voicing their discontent and saying that they were going to boycott it. But little did they know that this entire controversy, this entire boycott, was going to be catastrophic, but not in the way you'd think. Let's talk about it. But you know how you can avoid catastrophe? Showing up with a ship like this. And you can get exactly that because World of Warships is collaborating yet again with Ars Nova, this time with new content. The cosmetics are back with a vengeance. You can have animated characters show up on your ship as you're doing your battles. This collaboration has a new character, Hyuga, as well as returning ones like Iona and Kunzo. With over 500 ships spread across 10 different factions ever since the game came out in 2015, you'll no doubt find a ship that suits your playstyle. Speaking of playstyles, you can play solo or with teams, including game modes such as co-op. This game's also free and on consoles. The icing on the cake, though, is that if you use the code ARP, you get 5 special containers, 7 days premium account, 2.5 million credits, and 500 doubloons. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And thank you to Wargaming for sponsoring this video, baby. Genshin Impact has been out for almost 4 years now, and in that time, it has found itself embroiled in racism controversies 3 times now, including this one going on right now. And the question is, why? Well, you see, Genshin Impact has many regions, with Liyue right here being inspired by China. I mean, they have an actual opera singer called Mujin that sings in Mandarin Chinese opera. She was made to promote and celebrate Chinese culture, so it's no secret Liyue is based on China. Then you have Inazuma based on Japan, where the enemies look like samurais, and the goddess of the region, or Archon, is called the Raiden Shogun, right? It's fairly straightforward. The first racism controversy that HOYOVERSE was embroiled in was shortly after the game's release in 2020. One of the first and most common enemies you fight in the game for a very long time are called hilichurls, and this is how they look, right? The controversy stemmed from how their skin is the blackest it can be, and they are seen as the enemy. What made this controversy somewhat significant, though, was when an office tour of the developer of Genshin Impact was published on YouTube, and people saw an employee taking inspiration for the dance the hilichurl does from tribal and indigenous people. This is the dance right here, right? So overall, this happened. However, at the time, the game had generated over $1 billion just in 6 months, and the community was so huge that these complaints, honestly, they pretty much got ignored. No one really took them seriously. Now at this point, Genshin had been out for over a year. The Inazuma arc was concluding, and people were looking forward to the next region that came afterwards, which was Sumeru. There was such a content drought that leakers were becoming more and more of a problem because people looked forward to new content so much. I would argue one of the biggest leaks in this game's history was this image right here. This was posted on Reddit and then Twitter. And as you can see, this has over 20,000 upvotes on the subreddit r/Genshin Impact leaks. This image was so extremely significant. You had 7 characters that no one had ever seen before. The only thing that was shown from Sumeru was nothing, right? This was posted on June 30th, 2022. A few days later, on July 2nd, would be the first time people would even see what the region looked like. And there you had every single character releasing for like the next months after Sumeru finally releases. The leaks were getting out of control, but that's not what people were concerned with on Twitter or Reddit. Sumeru was meant to be a region inspired by the Middle East and South Asia, so India, for example. This made Twitter and some Reddit communities lose their absolute minds. calling HOYOVERSE racist for not wanting to display the skin colors of the cultures that they were getting inspired from. And the hashtag #BoycottGenshin got created. What I found really funny at the time was that these were leaked characters. These were illegally obtained images of the characters. Yet people were messaging Genshin Impact's customer support, complaining on Twitter, complaining on Reddit, calling them racist, when the entire foundation of their argument is an image obtained illegally. Like, it just didn't make sense. Even if content creators and voice actors and just people in the community wanted to talk about it, they couldn't, because that would blacklist them from any collaborations with HOYOVERSE in the future. There's one thing they don't like, and it's discussing leaks. But that didn't stop the community from creating a wildfire. Over time, as Genshin Impact would reveal more and more characters in Sumeru, there would always be comments in the replies talking about how they're not dark enough. But that didn't stop a huge amount of people from liking and spending money on those designs. And ironically, even though there was an entire boycott movement made on Twitter, when the goddess or Archon of Sumeru released, which is probably the most pale character out of any character in Sumeru, she broke sales records. Yes, this was the highest selling character banner in the history of the game since its release in 2020. More specifically in China, which is one of their main markets. But overall, it did very, very well globally too. This was then largely forgotten, right? We moved on to the next region, which was Fontaine. A mix of French and British culture. I don't know why you'd mix both of those things, but listen, it's your game, buddy. But people from the Sumeru controversy were hoping that the region after Fontaine, which was going to be Natlan, would give them what they wanted, darker skinned characters, because it was a region rumored to be inspired by South American and some African culture. Well, as you can guess from this video and the title and what we're talking about, it didn't meet any of their expectations. On July 9th, 2024, HOYOVERSE did their 4.8 version livestream, and then, at the end, revealed not only more of Natlan's landscape, but all these characters, with Mavuika over here being the goddess or Archon of the region. So as you can tell, there's not much of a change since Sumeru, right? So this prompted the same people who disliked Sumeru designs to come back on Twitter and Reddit and in the communities they frequent to talk about their dislike and disappointment in the direction HOYOVERSE took these characters. You saw tweets like this popping up with the hashtag BOYCOTTHYV, which stands for HOYOVERSE, saying, "Look at this bullshit, fix your f***ass games HOYOVERSE," showing examples of dark-skinned characters in Annie games and then comparing them to HOYOVERSE's palette. This boycott ended up reaching people outside of the targeted demographic with this tweet right here, where someone ended up sending a message to Genshin Impact's customer support complaining about the characters' designs and their skin tone, saying, "Genshin is not real life. Genshin Impact, what kind of response is this when a player submits feedback about the racism and colorism? Embarrassing, unprofessional behavior from a company of grown-ups and supposed mature, well-read developers. Hashtag, why are they white Hoyo?" They were referencing what the customer service was responding with. Here's what they said. "Dear traveler, thank you for your feedback. Please be kindly reminded that Genshin Impact is a work of fiction and is not related to actual people, events, groups, or organizations. We really do hope for your understanding. Kind regards, Genshin Impact Customer Service Team." This led to a very divided response on Twitter, with some people calling HOYOVERSE based for this response and others saying that they were immature and this only made them hate them more. In any case, this got so much attention that the person who tweeted it ended up deleting their account, which is why I'm showing you a screenshot. But this was still nothing compared to what happened next. Valeria Rodriguez, a voice actress and someone who happens to voice Sucrose from Genshin Impact, the 4-star character, tweeted this out on July 13th, saying, "I could stay quiet about this and protect myself, but us folk of color don't always need to stay quiet and let others f*** us over and disrespect us, so that we continue to advance at half the pace of our white peers. If you're going to use real-world deities, respect them. If you're basing off of real cultures, respect that. I'm fine with things being inspired by various cultures. That's awesome. Representation is dope. But bare minimum, do some research and show some cultural appreciation." Then she goes on to say, "Olorun is the supreme Yoruba deity. You could find that with a quick Google search even. This is unforgivable. Look at what a sick job Smite did with their own interpretation. It's not hard." So here she's referencing Olorun right here, the Yoruba deity. On the right, you can see the design from Smite. And right here is a character called Ororun, in Genshin Impact, part of Natlan's new characters, that doesn't resemble him in the slightest, right? She then ends her chain of tweets with a picture of herself with a book called Congo, The Epic History of a People, to prove that she's not doing this performatively. All right. So it's obvious that this tweet or series of tweets are very angry and emotional. And this was partly because it wasn't just talking about a video game anymore, it was talking about racism in general. This was also very direct, right? This wasn't a subtweet or an indirect tweet. This was calling out Genshin specifically by including this picture of the upcoming character Orun. A voice actor being this direct about Genshin Impact controversy has never really quite happened before. So one could say this was really the ground zero of the massive Twitter drama that followed. Valeria didn't stop there though. She tweeted again on the same day, "My reaction to you dorks saying you're gonna switch your game to a different language now." And it shows an emoji laughing. "I'm not deleting my tweets either. Seeing the huge response, both hateful and positive, means that I struck a chord. I'm done being silent. It's 2024. We can all do better." Then you had Bill Butt speak up, someone who doesn't voice for Genshin Impact, but who voices for Honkai Star Rail, another game in HOYOVERSE's roster. He's Albert, the beloved host of Honkai Star Rail live streams that showcase the next versions, choosing not to be as direct as Valeria and saying, "Dark skin is beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise." This was also made on July 13th, the same day Valeria was tweeting, and one could regard it as a subtweet, as an indirect tweet towards what was going on in Genshin Impact. Alejandro Saab, who voices in 3 different HOYOVERSE games in major roles, quote tweeted one of Valeria's tweets and said, "I didn't know that's who he's based on. Ah, that's bad. You still got time to fix it." Doubling down and tweeting it again on his VTuber account, echoing the same statement, but this time saying, "Wow, this is bad." So at this point, Twitter was on fire, and you had something that had never happened before. Multiple voice actors were, in some way, risking their jobs by speaking out about this so directly. But this was only the beginning. This tweet right here was made saying, "Why aren't Genshin content creators saying anything? They're the voices of the community. They should speak," garnering quite a bit of attention. This made very positive Genshin Impact creators, people who typically avoid controversy in every way and just focus on the positives, feel pressured to speak. Doro44 is one of them, and he quote tweeted this tweet saying, "Why aren't Genshin content creators speaking?" and then had this to say, "I did on my stream and on my reaction to the trailer. I'm disappointed that there aren't darker skin tone characters in Natlan and the representation is just so bad, especially since Hoyo is pulling from real world regions and cultures. I genuinely had hope for them, and I hope they make changes in time of release." And Doro speaking out pretty much started a chain reaction of other content creators also starting to speak out about it. You had Blap, one of the biggest Genshin Impact content creators around the time it released, able to do a video just playing the story and getting over 1 million views, said, "The insane part is like, what else is there to say about Genshin's colorism that hasn't already been said 2 years ago? People were talking about the same issues that were seen in Sumeru's cast and were instead told to wait for Natlan. Now that we're here, what do you wait for?" Tuanto, the Genshin Impact content creator with the most subscribers on YouTube, retweeted 2 tweets that were echoing the same sentiment as the voice actors and content creators that had spoken up. While this was happening, many people were taking the character designs that were already shown and making them black, like this one for example, and many others. And they were getting many views and a lot of traction on Twitter, with many people thinking, man, this should have been the actual design of these characters. But Tectone came in with a bit of a different opinion, saying Genshin Impact will not change. If you're mad, you should quit. The only thing they track/care about is money spent and concurrent player base. This has already happened before and will happen again. Side note, I do think it's fair to be upset, but the company doesn't care. And this is where it gets tricky, because it was becoming clear this was a topic with many different opinions. Genshin Impact had made this tweet officially revealing Moalani in her drip marketing, and here's 2 kinds of quote tweets that I want to show you to really make you understand how opinions can differ. Someone quote tweeted this drip marketing and said, "Holy shit, HOYOVERSE, you bumfucks, how did she get more white?" accusing them of whitening her up in the drip marketing. And then you had this tweet right here saying, Genshin fans be like, they whitewashed Obama, showing Obama in 2 different scenarios that have different light sources. This one also getting a lot of traction. But what really made this boycott catastrophic, in the sense that it didn't work, it won't work, and it will never work, is this right here. I could just sum it up with this tweet. Look, this is someone participating in the boycott saying, please remember not to fund HOYOVERSE anymore, go free to play queens. Because the sentiment echoed on the boycott communities on Twitter were saying, hey, listen, you can keep playing the game, just don't fund them, don't spend money anymore. And then you see this reply saying, or you could just stop playing the game? Because just you playing it pads their numbers and makes investors happy, meaning they still get money. Going free to play won't stop anything. To which this person replies, it is very easy to speak, but nearly impossible to do. I still remember thinking that I wanted to delete Honkai Star Rail, but I can't. Why? Because I invested 1,000 top dollars in this game. How can I delete this game now? I have spent so much on it. This right here is literally, I'm not even kidding, this is why the boycott didn't work and will never work, because the people boycotting it cannot stop playing the game. They're addicted. They can't do it. And here's the harsh reality. If HOYOVERSE had to pick between someone who shows up in their game once a month, spends $100, and then leaves, versus someone who plays the game every single day for hours on end and doesn't spend any dollar, guess who they'll pick if they can keep only one? They'll pick the person who doesn't spend money but plays the game every single day for hours on end. Why? First off, it pads their numbers and makes the active concurrent player base seem higher. But also, this person's addicted, dude. They have a higher chance of becoming an evangelist, something very valuable to a company that money can't really buy. Which means they'll talk to their friends about it. They'll probably buy merch. They'll go to conventions. They'll participate on social media, etc., etc. And let's be real here, many people boycotting are also in their teenage years, okay? It's not like they spent a lot of money to begin with. I doubt the real whales who are actually spending thousands of dollars every month, yes, thousands, actually care about this. And this is where this whole boycott is flawed. Additionally, Legal Mindset made this tweet saying something tells me the HOYOVERSE boycott will be ineffective, and this is a chart that shows the Genshin Impact player distribution by region. It says, here's a player distribution data by region in the past 5 years, being 100 has the most players, and as you can see here, the top 5 countries in which there's the most players that play Genshin Impact are Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Russia, and Taiwan. The United States isn't even here to begin with, and most of the European countries aren't either. In fact, I can't even find South America except for Chile and Costa Rica. The top 10 countries on this list, who also happen to be some of its biggest spenders, associate white skin with cleanliness, beauty, purity, and they also unfortunately don't really have any preference towards darker skin. I don't think it's surprising for me to say that both Japan and South Korea, the biggest player bases in this game by far, would probably never spend money on a darker skin color character. Because don't get it twisted, at the end of the day, this is about money. Something that HOYOVERSE is no stranger to at all. Genshin Impact in China alone has made $38 million in June of 2024, and this is during a dead period where there's not a lot of new content. Globally, Genshin Impact made $29 million, and I assure you, when the stats come out for July, it'll show a great number too. But that's weird, because some people were sharing this Imgur album saying this is the Chinese reaction to Natlan characters. Guys, there are allies here, with comments such as, agreed, it is appropriate to have black characters in settings and styles of Africa and Latin America, with bigger comments supporting it too. But here's the thing, this is part of a forum. I don't even know what the forum is, and these are only a few hand-picked comments. The reality is, most of the Chinese community is on Bilibili. Let's see what they had to say there. We don't have political correctness. They can f*** off. I don't like someone who looks too black. Hillagers are black and there are swarms of them. Why aren't they satisfied? Characters look okay. What's the problem? Why do they need to have dark skin? Black skin are so repulsive to look at. Only slight tan are okay. Now, of course, this doesn't represent the majority of Chinese people on this planet, but the reality is, HOYOVERSE would much rather piss off the global player who accesses Twitter and Reddit, 2 websites they can't access at home, rather than pissing off people like this. Don't get me wrong, 100,000 signatures is pretty significant, and this would have maybe gotten a certain reaction from a Western developer. But you're dealing with a Chinese corporation here, and a Chinese corporation will only care about either money or pissing off the government. That is it. There's nothing else. Zero. And this was proven in one of the worst ways as this was happening, by the way. The salt in the wound to everyone who signed this petition and complained on Twitter happened as they were complaining. On July 18th, not even a few days after the whole boycott movement was beginning to really explode, Genshin Impact released a patch for NEUVILLETE, a character famously known to have a very overpowered ability which lets him 360 and pretty much eliminate anyone in his radius. After 8 months of being out, they release a patch that quote-unquote fixes it and stops him from being able to do this rapidly. The Chinese fan base lost its mind over this and threatened to sue Genshin Impact under the law of Chinese consumer rights. And I kid you not, I kid you not, in under 24 hours, not only did they reverse the patch, but they sent one of the most generous rewards in the game's history, 1,600 Primogems, to apologize. While people were still complaining about the skin colors, HOYOVERSE had pretty much said, we couldn't care less unless our Chinese business was in danger. As I told you, either money or the government. That is the only thing that can move a Chinese corporation. And Chinese players knew that very well. Look, people have voiced their opinions. It's their opinion, you know, it's their viewpoint, and of course it's valid. I think one of the main issues I've seen people voice is the fact that their history is quote-unquote being replaced, because now if I type Olorun, which is the Yoruba deity, I start to see the Genshin Impact character, right? Who doesn't look anything like him. And the people complaining are making this out to be a life or death situation, like, oh my god, my culture is being replaced, it's being erased, I cannot support the game anymore. But the thing is, you can't make this out to be a life or death situation if you're addicted to the game and can't stop playing it. You have to commit. Because the fact that people are still playing the game while signing the petition just makes everyone look like absolute clowns, and that's the reality. A real boycott is like what happened with Blizzard back in 2019, when they disqualified a player for voicing support for Hong Kong protesters back in 2019. People in retaliation started deleting their Blizzard accounts. Yes, deleting them, not just not playing on them, deleting them in such high numbers that Blizzard did something dirty. They started asking people for their ID to delete your account. They were getting scared. This emboldened the employees to start doing on-site protests on the company grounds. Now, unfortunately, this was stopped short when the Hong Kong protests got stopped short because of the pandemic, but as you can see, this is a real example of a boycott, not whatever's going on with Genshin right now. I don't think anything will change, and until something like this happens, nothing will ever change. So my advice to you is, if you truly find this to be a life or death situation for you and your culture, then honestly, I think it's time to move on and go to a game that better presents your values, because Genshin Impact or anything under HOYOVERSE will not do so. And yeah, that's pretty much the controversy that's been going on the last few weeks. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna see you in the next video, which will probably be a deep dive on what's been going on with Ava Chris Tyson. There's a lot of misinfo being spread around, as well as some real info that some people might not be aware of. So we're gonna be doing that. I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but we'll see. I love you so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!